Hey there, it's Joel at DesignFlow Labs, and in this video I'm going to show you how we can use Siri Shortcuts to create new items in Podio. So one of the things that I run up against quite often is I'll be out and about and I'll want to create something new in Podio, whether it be a new note or memo to myself or a new project or an idea. I've got a number of apps throughout the environment, and rather than go into the Podio app, which I think is actually a really good app, but rather than go in there and dig through workspaces, applications, and create new records, what I like to do is just quickly go to Siri Shortcuts, enter a few pieces of information, and let the workflow take care of the rest. So what I'm going to show you is actually two parts to making this work. The first part is a little bit in setting up the Siri Shortcut to be able to grab information to pass over to Podio. The second part is the Podio workflow automation using a webhook to grab that information and use that input to create our item. Now, for this example, I'm going to use my notes application. So, like I said, one of the things I like to do is just add notes throughout the day, whether it's a client call or something I think about. My notes app is pretty simple. It's just got a title. There's a date field that gets auto-populated with a date and timestamp when it's created. And then I've got a few different categories. So meeting or call, thought or idea, is it client related, internal, something related to share file. I've got this flag button that I sometimes click if I want to come back to it. Then I've got other fields like details, a link if it's a website, whatever. Notes fields, all kinds of things. So again, pretty straightforward, but rather than jump into Podio every time I've got a thought or an idea, what I like to do is go over to Siri Shortcuts, either on my phone or on my Mac, enter in a few pieces of information, and quickly get that into Podio to come back to later. So let's talk about how we set this up. So our first stop is actually going to be over in Siri Shortcuts. And I'm actually going to go ahead and open up our DesignFlow notes. Let's edit this so we can see this. And we'll kind of walk through the general idea and setup here. So it's actually a straightforward shortcut because the first couple of pieces of information, like I said, I'm just asking for a title and some details. But then I also want to be able to capture some category fields and set those in Podio. So how do I do that from a Siri Shortcuts perspective? Well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm asking for our note name and our note details. So those are just two simple, ask for text input fields that I dragged over. But then I need to be able to choose which one of these options for type do I want this note to be. Is this a meeting or a call or a thought or idea? So the way this works in Siri Shortcuts is I've got this choose from menu action. And when I drag this over, I can basically put in each of my options. Now, I want to point out that these are case sensitive, so you want to make sure that the spelling and the case here is the exact match of what you've got in your app for your category fields in order for that to work. Because what we're doing is, and you'll see this when we run through the Siri shortcut, is we're basically giving the option to choose which one of these options we want this note to be. And then what we're doing is we're setting each one of these. So if we choose meeting or call, what we're doing is we're saving text meeting or call, and we're saving that and storing that as a variable called type. So we do that for each one of our options. So for each of our options, we just store what that option is as text, and then we set a variable for that text to be type. And you'll see how this works here in a few minutes. So we've got that for what kind of work is this for our type. Then we've got another one for what's the topic. And again, I've got three options here in Podio: client, share file, internal. I want to be able to select from that list. And again, based on that selection, store that to be able to pass that forward so that Podio workflow automation knows which one of these options to select from. Now for flag, what we did is slightly different, same concept, but rather than have just a yes field, we added a skip field as well. So you'll see this when we run through the flow. I'm presented with two options. Either I mark it yes, which means this returns as flagged, or if I skip, it just returns as nothing. Now, here's the second part. So what we've done so far is we've built our Siri shortcut to grab data inputs and pass those forward, but we need to pass them to Podio workflow automation, specifically to a webhook, to pick those up and create our item. So let's go see how that looks in Podio workflow automation. So I've got a webhook flow here called Siri Shortcut DesignFlow Notes. Go ahead and edit this. And we've got our web link here. So this is our endpoint for our webhook. And you can see here what we're going to do is we're going to grab that and copy that. And we're going to paste that over here. So if I drop this down to show more, we're going to use this get contents of URL action. We're going to drag that over. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that endpoint address and we're going to put that here as our link. What we're going to do is we're going to say, now I want to post this data to that endpoint. I want the body to be returned as JSON. And what that means is we're going to grab each of these variables and return the value from our inputs above for each of these variables. So we've got our name, our details, our type, our topic, and our flag. So what this looks like, if I run this as a test real quick, let's just call this test 1, details 1. Let's mark this as a meeting or a call with a client and say, yes, we want to follow up. What it's doing is it's posting that. So if I come refresh this, we'll see here now that we pulled that data forward. So our name is test 1 based on the input. Our type is meeting or call, details 1, client, and flag. So now that we've got that payload, what we're able to do is go create a new action that says create a new note in our Notes app. And then we're going to use these variables from the payload and use those to create our new note. So our note title is going to be the name. It's going to be test 1. Note type, again, because we're grabbing this as a category field, in order to see that variable, we're going to set this to calc. And then you'd be able to see webhook type. Again, this is why this spelling and capitalization matter, because over in our Podio app, it needs to match exactly to those two options. Otherwise, if you have a typo in there, it'll create a third option or a fourth option, which isn't good. But we've got our details, our topic, and our flag. So let's go take a look here. If I cancel this out and then refresh, we should have that in there. Yep. So there is our test 1 that came over with our timestamp. So we grabbed it as a meeting or call. It was client related, and we've got that flagged for follow-up. So what I can do is now anytime I'm here working, let's say, again, I want to come over here and let's say I have a new thought, from Siri Shortcuts on my Mac or even on my phone. I click DesignFlow Notes. Let's say new idea. Use webhook and Siri Shortcuts for tasks. You can do the same thing with native tasks in Podio without all the category field complexity in there, but I'm going to say this is just a thought or idea. This is internal. I'm going to skip this one, and there we go. Now, when I come back over to Podio and come to our notes, and I refresh, there it is. I've got my new idea. It was a thought or idea. It was marked as internal, but it's not something I need to come back to later. And I've got my details here. So again, this has all kinds of applications. I use this if I think about any kind of new content, whether it's a blog post or a video idea. I'll come up here, same kind of thing. I'll drop this down, give it a content name, some details. I'll choose what type it is. Is it a video, a blog post, any number of things. So it just gives you some easy ways to go quickly create those items to come back to later inside of Podio using Podio shortcuts. So hopefully you find this helpful, and we'll look for you on the next video.